Anyway, let's get
I'll give that a
started.
miss.
Read it for, you're not a fan.
Okay, we're live now, Leader.
Oh, okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Let's get started. Do we have any apologies for absence?
I haven't received any apologies.
Does any cabinet member need to declare an interest? Before we move on to the substantive items, Cabinet, item number 3, uploading S106 capital sums into the 2024-25 capital budget, has been postponed from this cabinet because it requires further consideration of the dispersal of funds, and I would like to bring it to cabinet in May. So with that out of the way, can we move to public spaces protection order for dog controls, which I will hand over to you, Councillor Griffiths, because you took this through scrutiny.
Yes, certainly. And I wonder if you would join the table next to Marianne.
Nice.
So I'll provide an introduction, and then if there are any questions, and no doubt I'll be relying on Hugh. So as you can see from the published report, we're seeking to introduce a public protection order for dog controls. The recommendations are that you agree the protection order and that you give delegation to officers for its enforcement. I believe it's an important report that's intended to lead to positive behavioural change, or to support the positive behavioural change that is already taking place with and has taken place with dog owners, so that they and others can improve their enjoyment of public spaces. The proposal is not in any way anti-dog owner. Dog owners are overwhelmingly responsible people. They benefit from companionship with their dogs, they benefit from exercising their dogs, they benefit from the social interaction that they get with their dogs. And indeed, I believe that over the decades there's already been massive behavioural change amongst dog owners. And what we do is building upon that. My memory of my youth is that you went down any high street and played hopscotch with dog feces. You don't do that anymore, and that's because dog owners have amended their behaviour, and I think we should all appreciate that. The order has 5 provisions that dog owners are required by virtue of the order to pick up the feces of their dogs. It's not a new expectation, but the order means that they will be subject to a penalty notice if they fail to do that. Provision 2 is that the dog owners be in possession of bags for the purpose of picking up those feces. Number 3 is that an authorised officer of the council may direct an owner to put a dog on a lead where it is causing a nuisance, wherever the location may be. The 4th provision is that dogs are excluded in specified areas, that there will be dog exclusion zones. Overwhelmingly, and the appendix provide the list. These will be children's play areas and sports areas. And the 5th provision is that dogs must be kept on leads in other specified areas. The report before us today in Cabinet is the end point of many years of public engagement, consultation, and consensus building primarily by our officers. The first consultation on the principles of the order took place in 2021. There were 1,300 responses, overwhelmingly positive on the principle of introducing such an order. Further consultation took place in 2022 on the application of the policy and on the designation of the exclusion areas and other areas. And I know that Chepstow Town Council, of which I'm a member, gave detailed scrutiny to the areas proposed in that consultation. And I know that happened throughout the county. And I thank all the town and community councils for their input in that detailed exercise. The Scrutiny Committee has received a succession of 3 reports as this policy has been developed. And I thank all members of the Scrutiny Committee for their contribution. And it's been very purposeful, very engaged. Their contribution to building the broad consensus, which I think is behind this policy. And in particular now, I'd like to thank Hugh Owen, who's with us today, who's been the Public Protection Officer, who has steered this policy over the many years to bring us to this report today. I think this has been an exemplar of how a local authority can engage with its citizens, its communities, its elected members to bring forward positive change. It's an exemplar which began before the current council was elected. I'm giving my thanks to the previous council for the work that it's done and for the work that's continued there. I think that all parts of the council can learn from this exemplar, successively engaging with the Scrutiny Committee, not a one-off, successively engaging with the public, not a one-off tick box consultation, but going back to the public and going back again and testing the development of your policy. So I think it's been done well. I hope Cabinet agrees. And I think that's in significant part due to Hugh and his team. Finally, I said this was an important report. I think managing the behaviour of dog owners in the way that this intends, encouraging positive change in the way this intends, is important. And I'll finish by sharing a personal experience. For many decades, I was a member of Pontyclean Rugby Club. My son was a player for 20 years. Week after week, I would join with parents on the training nights, on the match days, clearing the field of dog feces before the Public Protection Order was in place in that area. But despite that exercise, we continued with that field clearing, knowing that in the history of our club, a young player had suffered a leg amputation because of the remnant of a dog feces. This is why we need to get this right. And I do believe this report is setting us in the right direction. I commend it.
Thank you very much. That's quite sobering when it's put in those terms, actually. Councillor Groker.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, frightening, the consequences. And it seems to me that one problem might well be enforcement. I think it's going to be a big issue among some so-called dog lovers. I wonder if you could comment on how it will be done. And the report indicates that adding to the responsibility of officers will be problematic. I wonder if you could just explain a little about what you meant and how we're going to take this forward.
I think I'd like to hand over to Hugh, actually, if you can just share your thinking, Hugh, on how we take enforcement forward.
Thank you, Councillor Griffiths, for your introduction. and Martin for your question. Yes, and just following on from the point before I answer the question, Councillor Griffiths, this is not a new piece of legislation. We have Social Blue Act 2014. It's been around for a number of years. 18 of the local authorities in Wales currently have a PSPO of some sort with regards to dog controls to suit their area. But we took a decision a number of years ago to go down a different route and try and raise awareness, and through collaboration, through a project and a scheme called Give Dog Fouling a Red Card, which has been working really closely with town and community councils. And it's through that collaboration, which has been successful, but the message has been loud and clear. We do need the vast majority responsible dog owners, but we do need to nudge behaviour and go a step further. And the PSPO is a perfect tool for that. So how do we enforce it? Well, effective enforcement, and I've been involved in the enforcement side of things now for quite a while. Effective enforcement has to start with raising awareness. What we don't want to do is be issuing fixed penalty notices or taking people to court. Ultimately, we need the power to do that and the ability to do that. And that's why recommendation 2.2 is for delegated authority to be to the said officers in 2.2, so we can have a cross-directorate approach. But it has to be a phased approach. We're advocating that the PSPO starts on the 1st of June. And the early months of a PSPO is going to be about raising awareness, making the public aware, our communities aware that the PSPO is in place and what the restrictions are. So how do we intend to raise awareness? It's by signposting, a comprehensive signposted scheme, particularly every exclusion area, which are typically the marked sports pitches, the children's play areas and school and leisure centre grounds, to be appropriately signposted. We will be given social media updates. We'll be continuing to work closely with town and community councils. So that's the first point. Phased approach in the early summer months. It's going to be about raising awareness. Secondly, we need to consider, okay, we have to have officers authorised who have the ability to take action. That'll be an expectation of our communities as well, where there are breaches. And what we do know from experience is that with regards to dog fouling and dog controls, effective enforcement needs to be intelligence-led. What we're not advocating is that we have lots of our officers and officer time proactively patrolling the county. We know that's not an efficient use of time. So it's going to be intelligence-led, first and foremost. Working again with the town and community councils, where we get flagrant breaches of the PSPO, but we have a team of officers who are able to then act. Now, whilst there'll be a cross-directorate approach, and I recognise the statement, but it is going to be problematic making sure that we can have as many officers as we want or as we would like authorised. In my team in environmental health of 8 officers, we already are authorised to deal with dog fouling issues. So that's going to be straightforward to make sure that we have a team in those early days of the PSPO who will be able to act on intelligence. Then to move that forward and to get that cross-directed approach, communities in place will be picking up enforcement as part of the litter and parking review later on in the year, which will potentially look at our civil enforcement officers, potentially town wardens, etc., who are already out in our communities doing their day-to-day jobs. If they come across an offence, we'll then be able to act. Hope that helps answer the question, Chair.
I wonder, Chair, if I can just add to that. I mentioned Pontyclean. I was a ward member in Pontyclean when the public protection order was introduced there 10 years ago. And I found it a reassuring experience in that once the notices went up, overwhelmingly this was self-enforcing. It wasn't something that needed to be policed in any way, or most often. In sports areas, if individuals choose to not notice the notice, then members of the sports club would politely persuade them that the notice existed. So that wasn't the local authority intervening there. When I talked to an authorised officer in the council, he had a very memorable phrase. He said to me, "You must realise that dog owners are creatures of habit." This is what I think Hugh meant by intelligence-led. If there is a dog owner who's breaching an order and they do it at 5:30 in the evening, they do it 5:30 every evening in the same place. And you can alert an authorised officer, and intelligence-led action would lead to a quiet word with the individual involved in the first case. So in that context, in a different local authority, when this was introduced, it made a marked difference, but it did not need heavy-handed or expensive enforcement to achieve that.
Thank you, Hugh. That was more than adequate. It is incredibly comprehensive, and I think it gives full scale, including your observations, Councillor Griffiths, of what we need to do to ensure that we implement this, because that's the crux of the matter, isn't it? Given the extensive and intensive consultation that we've gone on, we know that our residents want us to go down this path, and they will want us to see us implementing the measures outlined in this report. Councillor Sandals, you want to come in?
Yes, thank you, Leader. Yeah, one thing that's occurred to me, thank you for taking this report through as well, Paul. As you know, the last sort of, you've done all the work with the officers for this really comprehensive report, and I'm really grateful. Thank you. The report indicates that the financial consequences limited to the cost of signage. £30,000 to be borne by the county council, sorry, 3,000, and 7,000 to be borne by other landowners. Have we got budgetary provision for this in the county council? Can we be sure that other landowners will be able to bear the cost? Thank you.
I believe you'd like to answer that, Hugh.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Sanders. My understanding is £45,000 has been set aside in the capital budget for the grounds and cleansing team. As I said, this is very much a cross-directed approach. It affects all land owned by the council, so school and leisure centres. But of course, the grounds team maintain the vast majority of our areas. So 45,000 is split up. We believe that around about £37,000 is going to be needed for signage. The grounds team, if this goes through Cabinet, will tender for quotes. But our initial estimate is around about 37,000 is needed for signage. Of that, £30,000 will be for council-owned land. And £10,000 to £15,000 will be the cost of actual putting up the signs. There's going to be around about £7,000 worth of signage needed for the 40 or so areas which are owned by town and community councils, a few by registered social landlords, and a few which are leased by sports clubs. So we're talking about £100 to £200 per site. So we fully expect, fully anticipate that town and community councils are going to be able to support that. I've had no indication from them otherwise. So the cost of signage, privately owned land, but still public spaces, is not tremendous. What we anticipate is that the grounds team will be putting up the signs. And then we've already got a recharging mechanism in place with the town and community councils for those parcels of land which are owned by the town and community councils to recharge accordingly.
Thank you. That answers my questions. Thanks.
Do we have any other questions or observations, Cabinet? Okay, given I've received no questions on this item from the political leaders from the other groups, I'll move straight to recommendations. We have two recommendations. Firstly, that members consider and comment on the findings of the public consultation, which, as you know, were in appendices 1 and 2. And second, that members consider the proposed PSPO amended following the public consultation and endorse its progress. So are we ready to, oh, there's a third one. I obviously need to get my glasses clean. Members consider the proposed allocation of costs for the implementation of the PSPO signage. And sorry about this.
I think you might be on one.
Yeah, it's that.
That's what I thought. Apologies, this is the one that was given to me by Linda when I read. So we have two recommendations. Apologies, Cabinet, and apologies also to the public for confusing you in any way. We have two recommendations. 2.1 to approve the adoption of the PSPO for dog controls in Monmouthshire, to be introduced under the provision of the Antisocial Behaviour, Crime and Policing Act 2014, commencing on the 1st of June 2014 and remaining in force for 3 years, ending on the 31st of May 2027. Are we agreed, Cabinet?
Yeah.
Agreed. Recommendation 2.2 to update the Council's constitution to give delegated authority to officers for enforcement powers for breach of the PSPO, namely the Head of Public Protection, the Head of Neighbourhood Services and the Chief Officer, People, Performance and Partnerships. Are we agreed, Cabinet? Thank you. And I'm very pleased that we've been able to take this through Cabinet. It's very important for the well-being of all our residents and is part of, as we know, public protection and our duty of care. So moving on to item 5. Thank you very much, Hugh. School emissions policy 2025-26, including review of school catchment areas. And over to you, Councillor Grow-Cutton. Wonderful to see you back. Chirpy. You're back in your rightful place.
Thank you, Linda. And while I've got the floor, if I could just take one moment to have a personal word with Councillor Richard John. Many thanks for your best wishes and also those of your group when I was absent from work and enjoying the facilities of the National Health Service. Your best wishes were much appreciated. And thank you to you and your whole group, and I would appreciate it if you could pass those on next time you meet.
I certainly will. Thank you. That's very kind. Good to see you back.
It's great to be back. There are new bits of me that didn't previously exist, and from now on I'm going to be all heart. I've been practicing that one all day. This report follows on from earlier discussions that we've had, in which Councillor John has also been involved, around a rolling programme of review of catchment areas and admissions procedures and so on. And so while I'm this new me of being nice to everybody, I'm going to say thank you, Richard, for bringing those requests to us. And you've had my assurance in the past that, yes, we will keep reviewing catchment areas to make sure that they represent the best needs of our communities. And my magnanimity knows no bounds. I'd also like to congratulate and thank Councillor Faye Bromfield, who has requested on several occasions the review that was reflected in this report, particularly around the community in Tredonoc. So I hope that the report that you will obviously have seen, because it's in the public domain, is not controversial. I hope it fits what it is clear the community wants from the consultation that has been undertaken. And so I'm not going to add much to the report. It is written by Will McLean, my senior officer, who has held the fort magnificently while I've not been here. He's probably relished every moment of not having me chiding him all day long. And also Matt Jones, who's the head of that particular part of the service, who in my absence has conducted the entire process of meeting with local schools, local governors, local community, and all the other people that are consulted under the programme. And it's great to see that happening in my absence, and such an effective, well-written report being presented to Cabinet now. So in essence, it's asking for an extension of the catchment area of Usk Primary School. That's how it would plan out. And if it's acceptable to Cabinet, it would be implemented from September 2025, not this coming September, because the processes are already underway for that, but from September 2025. It asks for the catchment area of Usk Church in Wales Primary School to be extended to take in children from the communities of Tredonoc, Llanhennock and Llandegfeth. And they are currently part of the catchment area of the Charles Williams Church in Wales School, which is in the borough of Newport in Caerleon. The proposals will give something that I think we've all cherished, and that is the idea that Monmouthshire families should be able to send their children to Monmouthshire schools. And this report will allow that to happen. But amongst the very small amount of opposition, which was mainly on distance grounds to get to school, there were obviously some concerns that it would be further than sending your child to Charles Williams Primary. The reality is that until Newport as a local authority changes its plans, the children will actually be in two catchment areas. They will be in the catchment area of Usk Primary, which overwhelmingly is the popular favourite, according to our consultation. But until Newport takes action on its own, they will also still be in the catchment area for Charles Williams. So those few very fortunate children will have an equal claim to be able to go to one of two schools. But just a word on the consultation. Of 21 responses, 17 were very firmly in favour of support for the extension of the Usk catchment. 4 were opposed. They were, as I say, on the grounds of distance, but that's not an issue, as I hope I've been able to explain, although it sounds rather odd. And actually, at the moment, no parents are claiming transport to send their children to Charles Williams. So it's largely, I think, theoretical in any case. So I think this is something that the local community wants. If every child took up their right to school transport to Usk Primary, if the changes are agreed, the present costings would mean an additional cost of £41,500. That will, of course, go up as the cost of fuel rises, unfortunately. But I think that in the grand scheme of things and the strength of community feeling, which Councillor Bromfield has made consistently plain to me over a period of time, I think that's small beer, really. And the idea that all our children can be educated in our schools with our policies is something that we should see as a positive benefit. So the community wants this. Local community reps in that area very clearly want it. I think as a county council and as a cabinet, we should be promoting Monmouthshire schools for Monmouthshire children. And if there is any cause for concern, there is certainly room in Usk Primary School where the roles are slightly falling at the moment to be able to accommodate these children. So I see it as a win-win.
Excellent. Thank you very much. It's always good to have a good news story, especially when it appears to have been raining for the last 100 years. That's a bit of sunlight. This is a very straightforward report, as you said, Councillor Groker. Are there any questions or observations from the Cabinet? And there were no questions submitted. So let us move to the recommendations. There's 3 of them. I hope I've got the report here. The first recommendation that members review and agree the full content of this report. Are we agreed, Cabinet?
No.
And that on reviewing section 2.1, the members agree to implement the following changes to determine the primary catchment school for the affected areas. You made it very clear what they were, Councillor Grover, so I won't read it out. Are we agreed, Cabinet?
Yeah.
We agreed, Nick. Finally, that we acknowledge, in line with the admission arrangements for Carl Williams Church in Wales Primary School, the affected area will also remain within the catchment for Charles Williams CIW Primary until such time the governing body consult to amend their catchment area. Are we agreed?
Yeah.
Thank you, Cabinet. We have no more items on the agenda, so I'll bring Cabinet to a close. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I can cope with meetings of that.
Oh, excellent. Maybe